He got engaged to his first love. The woman he always said was just a memory. Me. The loyal girlfriend he lived with for years? I found out when the photos went public. While they toasted their love under chandeliers, I left behind my key, my career, and the life I built around him. Now he's chasing stability in ruins. And I'm growing peace in a garden that never needed his name. I used to believe that heartbreak came like thunder. Loud, crashing, impossible to ignore. Turns out sometimes it arrives quietly. In the middle of an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Through an email from someone you trained. The studio smelled like rosemary and damp soil, the windows fogged from last night's storm. I had my sleeves rolled up and was elbow deep in the replanting of a traveler's palm when my phone buzzed beside my coffee. Slaw. Tell me you've seen this. Followed by a link. The image preview showed Grayson in a sleek charcoal suit, smiling. His arm rested easily on the waist of a woman in a white silk dress. Her head tilted toward his like they'd never once been apart. Confused, I tapped it open, wiping the dirt off my fingers with the edge of my shirt. The article was from Architectural Digest. Headline: Grayson Hale and Camille Rivers announce engagement. A love rekindled across oceans. I blinked. Once. Twice. Then I dropped my phone. It hit the floor with a small thud and skidded under my planter shelf. I didn't move to pick it up. My head spun. For a long moment I just stared blankly at the leaves in front of me. I could still hear the water dripping into the drain pan beneath the shelf. Grayson. Camille. Engaged. I wasn't even aware they were speaking again, let alone. The words blurred. Engagement. Announce. Love. 3 years. We'd been together for 3 years. Quietly, yes. Privately, always. But together. Hadn't we? The phone started ringing somewhere beneath the shelf. I didn't want to answer it. But I already knew it was Isla. I crawled to retrieve it. Hello, I said, though my voice didn't sound like mine. Isla's voice was tight with urgency. Please tell me you knew. Please tell me that wasn't how you found out. I sat on the cold tile floor. My hands were still dirty. My arms had gone numb. No, I said softly. I didn't know. Pause. God, she muttered. Sienna, I thought maybe it was a PR stunt. Or like an old photo. But no, it's today. They confirmed the date. There's a press release and everything. Hale Design just shared it. I was with him last week, I whispered, more to myself than to her. He brought me chai and kissed my temple before the staff meeting. Nothing felt different. Are you okay? I laughed. Or tried to. It came out more like a breathy wheeze. Define okay. I hung up a few minutes later. There wasn't anything more to say. Isla was as shocked as I was, but her comfort couldn't touch the ache in my chest. I stared around the studio. My studio. The garden room Grayson had converted for me when he realized I hated fluorescent lighting and preferred being surrounded by greenery. Your little jungle, he used to call it. He once said the scent of basil and sage helped him think. He forgot that too, I guess. By evening I had read the article 3 more times. In it, Grayson spoke about a romance that took root long ago, and how Camille had always challenged him to dream globally. He praised her education in Paris. Her vision for merging architecture and art. Not once did he mention anything about the last 3 years of his life. About me. About us. I could still hear his voice from just last month, sitting in my kitchen saying, "You're my peace, Sienna." Apparently, peace didn't make headlines. I sat at my desk with the window open. It had begun raining again. Asheville's summer showers were relentless. I opened a blank document. Typed slowly. Dear Mr. Hale. I am writing to formally resign from my role as botanical consultant with Hale Design, effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity to build meaningful projects during my time here. I wish you continued success. No fluff. No anger. Just air. I added my name. Signed and time-stamped it. It was the only closure I'd get. I didn't send it immediately. Instead, I walked to my kitchen and made tea, out of muscle memory more than anything else. I added 1.5 spoons of sugar. No cream. Just the way Grayson liked it. I stared at the cup for a long time, then poured it down the drain. Then I sent the email. I left my phone in airplane mode that night. I didn't want to see any congratulations messages. I didn't want to see Grayson and Camille's names trending online. And I definitely didn't want him to text me. I didn't know if I would have the strength to ignore it. When I woke up the next morning, there was no reply from him. No unread messages. No missed calls. No emails. Not even a question. I was halfway through packing up my things from the garden room when I saw a sticky note taped to the shelf. It was one I'd written myself months ago for the intern rotation board. Handle the roots gently. They bruise easy even when they seem strong. Felt stupid now. I peeled it off and crumpled it into my coat pocket. I left Hale Design with 2 boxes of books, 3 pots of aloe, and no goodbye. Just silence. And soil under my fingernails. It had been exactly 12 days since I handed in my resignation at Hale Design. 12 days since I pressed send on a 3-line email that unraveled 3 years of quiet loyalty. And still not a single word from Grayson Hale. Not even a 1-line reply. You'd think silence would be a relief, like releasing the pressure valve on a sinking ship. But his silence didn't feel like relief. Felt like confirmation. Not a mistake. Not confusion. Just indifference. I tried to go on like normal. Woke up early. Watered my plants. Updated my freelance portfolio with photos of rooftop gardens I had once built with trembling hands and hopeful eyes. I kept the blinds open. I left my phone face down. But the ache never fully faded. Then on a slow Tuesday morning, Isla texted me. Isla. Camille's officially back. Press release just went live. Isla. Grayson's firm renamed the luxury line, the Rivers series. As in Camille Rivers. Isla. Welcome brunch tomorrow. Rooftop. I stared at her messages in silence. My thumb hovered over the screen. Technically, I wasn't an employee anymore. No key card, no contract. Just a ghost. But the event wasn't staff only. It was branded as a social launch, a curated mixer for key contributors, media, and design collaborators. The kind of thing where people showed up to sip champagne and be seen. My name was still on the public contributor list for the last 4 rooftop installations. Legally I belonged. Emotionally I didn't know. I didn't reply to Isla right away. I went to the kitchen, made a cup of green tea, and sat in the armchair by the window. Outside the sky was overcast. Inside my chest was a storm of its own. What did I hope to gain by going? Closure? Humiliation? Did I need to prove something? To Grayson? To Camille? To myself? I traced my finger along the curve of my mug. Well, I didn't need to prove anything. But I did need to see it. I needed to see them. See how easily I'd been replaced. How comfortably he moved on. See if the hurt in my gut matched the truth in the room. That night I pulled a dress from the back of my closet. Soft, fitted. Slate blue. The color of quiet strength. I paired it with small silver hoops and low heels. No lipstick. Just a tinted balm. Let them see me barefaced. Let them see that I didn't need armor anymore. The Hale Design rooftop looked exactly as I remembered. Flawlessly staged, expensive, emotionally empty. Twinkle lights curved overhead like curated constellations. Lavender in ceramic pots sat on white marble tabletops. Waiters floated by with glasses of Prosecco and delicate canapes. Everything smelled like citrus and expectation. I walked in without hesitation. No one stopped me. Of course not. They trained me to move quietly, gracefully, like part of the decor. I spotted Isla across the patio, already halfway through her first drink. She waved me over wide-eyed. Holy hell. You actually came. Don't sound so surprised. You said you deleted the calendar invite. I did. So why? I took a glass from a passing tray. I needed to know if I made the right decision. Her face softened. You did. I still need to see it. We didn't have to wait long. Camille entered the garden space 15 minutes later. She floated in like a movie scene, hair curled, white pantsuit pristine, stilettos unbothered by the gravel path. She looked exactly like the press photos. A woman built for attention. Her hand rested delicately on Grayson's forearm. They were flanked by 2 junior associates, one carrying her bag, the other flipping through a tablet. Conversations slowed. Heads turned. I felt Isla stiffen beside me. But I just kept sipping. Let them have their moment. Let the queen reclaim her throne. Grayson scanned the crowd once. His eyes swept past me, paused a fraction too long, then moved on. I didn't flinch. He didn't nod. Neither of us smiled. Camille began making rounds. kissing cheeks, complimenting jackets, pausing for selfies. Eventually, she reached our side of the garden. "Oh," she said, tilting her head with mild surprise. "You're here." Her voice was all elegance, silk-wrapped and sweetened, but her smile was the same one she wore in interviews when dismissing competitors. "Sienna Blake," she mused, as if recalling a brand of tea she once tried but never bought again. "Still lingering in the soil?" "Just visiting," I said evenly. She scanned my dress, my glass, my face. "Very rustic chic." "Very curated charm," I replied, nodding at her oversized diamond earrings. Her smile faltered for half a second. Then she leaned in slightly, voice dropping just enough that only I could hear. "I've always admired how far you've come. I mean, from orphanage to garden designer. That's practically a Hallmark movie." Isla gasped behind me. I said nothing. Camille looked me over once more and added with a gentle laugh, "But some of us were born for penthouses. Others bloom where they're told." She turned before I could reply. Grayson stood 10 feet away watching the interaction. His jaw was tight. But he didn't move. Didn't approach. Just quietly topped off Camille's wine as she returned to his side. That was the moment. Not her words. His silence. I think part of me still expected him to say something. Anything. Not to defend me, but to acknowledge me. 3 years. And he stood there like I was a party crasher instead of the woman who once watered his dreams with everything I had. Isla leaned in. "Say the word and I'll spill her drink down her spine." I shook my head. "She's not the villain here." "You're kidding." "No," I said. "He is." The rest of the evening passed in polite conversation and passive glances. I didn't make a scene. Didn't storm out. Didn't cry in the restroom. I stayed for exactly 45 minutes, finished my drink and excused myself. As I left, I passed Grayson again. He looked at me. I looked back. Neither of us blinked. Back at my apartment, I didn't collapse onto the bed or press my palms to my eyes. I simply peeled off my dress, washed my face, made tea and wrote 5 words on a sticky note. "You were never coming back." I stuck it to my mirror. And I believed it. 2 days later, Camille officially moved into Grayson's loft. I saw it in the background of a Vogue Living article, a feature on the rising power couple of modern design. My teacups were gone from the kitchen shelves. My herb planters removed from the balcony. The walls were repainted white. No trace of me. Except one. The flower pot I gave Grayson. A wide ceramic piece I'd hand-molded, painted in warm earth tones, planted with forget-me-nots. It sat awkwardly in the corner of the photo, clashing with everything around it. Like it didn't belong. I went to the window, looked out at my own little balcony garden. It wasn't much. But it was mine. I walked over, slid the door open and stood barefoot among the planters. The soil was still damp from yesterday's rain. I closed my eyes. Smiled. I didn't need him to replace me to know I was never his choice. I just needed to see it for myself. And now I had. I wasn't going to go back. After the brunch, after the quiet humiliation, after watching Grayson pour Camille another glass of wine while I became just another shadow on the rooftop, there was no reason to return. But there was. In the photo. Camille, all polished and perfect, leaning against the kitchen counter in Grayson's loft. Vogue Living had called it minimalist intimacy. They didn't mention the flower pot shoved awkwardly behind a stack of cookbooks. My flower pot. The one I hand-molded 2 years ago, painted with warm earth tones, planted with forget-me-nots that matched the color of Grayson's eyes on winter mornings. It didn't belong in that photo. Not just because it clashed with Camille's sterile, curated aesthetic, but because it looked like a bruise in the middle of a spotless room. I don't know why it hurt more than anything else. But it did. So I went back for it. The office had changed in subtle, quiet ways. My name no longer glowed on the digital team wall near the reception desk. My login code no longer worked at the elevator. I had to buzz up and tell the front desk I was here, just to collect something I left behind. Isla met me at the door. "I thought you burned the bridge," she whispered, pulling me into a quick hug. "I did," I said. "But there's still a flower pot floating in the water. I'm here to fish it out before someone smashes it." He gave me a wary look. "Camille's in. Grayson too. I won't stay long." "Good. Because I have no bail money." The pot was where I left it, in Grayson's office by the back window that overlooked the city skyline. only now it was half dead. The Fittonia leaves wilted. The soil dried up. No water tray underneath. Just a faint ring of crusted dirt where it had once stood tall and green. And then, a voice. Familiar. Well, I was going to toss that. Camille stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her heels echoing on the tile. I turned slowly, hands still wrapped around the pot. Excuse me. She stepped forward, her eyes lazily scanning the planter like it was something diseased. It's hideous, she said. Doesn't match the rest of the office. Or the loft, obviously. It wasn't meant to match, I said. He smiled too sweet. Exactly. That's why I'm throwing it out. I stared at her for a long moment. It's mine. She scoffed. You left it. I didn't know I needed to hire movers for something that fits in my arms. Camille reached out like she was about to grab it from me. Trust me, you're doing yourself a favor. Let go of the clutter. Camille. Grayson's voice came from the hallway. We both turned. He stepped into view, hands in his pockets, brows drawn slightly together. Camille gestured toward me. She's here for this thing. I was telling her it doesn't belong anymore. Grayson looked at me. Then at the pot. He didn't say anything right away. Then finally, let her take it. Camille stiffened beside me. Seriously. He nodded once. It was hers. For a second she looked like she might argue. But instead she turned on her heel with a sharp click of her stilettos and disappeared down the hall. The silence she left behind was heavier than her words. Grayson took a step closer but didn't breach the distance between us. You made that? He asked quietly. I did. I forgot. I didn't reply. Instead, I knelt down and rested the pot on the small side table near the chair. The base had always been slightly uneven. It wobbled when you let go too fast. I steadied it with both hands. Grayson crouched beside me. I never noticed, he began, then paused. What? He tilted the pot slightly, fingers brushing over the underside. There, carved into the clay with a small sculpting tool, hidden beneath layers of glaze, were 5 small letters. S+G. And below that, may this bloom even when we don't. He froze. His fingers stopped moving. His breath caught just a little. I didn't know that was there, he said. You never looked. He didn't respond. Not right away. He just stared at the base of the pot like it had rewritten every memory he had of me. And maybe in a way it had. Because I had loved him in invisible ways. Ways that didn't scream. Ways that never demanded attention. Ways that lived in carved initials and quiet hope and blooming petals he never bothered to water. After a long silence he asked, Did you mean it? I looked at him. Every word. He nodded slowly. Still crouched beside the pot. Still touching what he once forgot. And I knew in that moment, this was the first time he truly felt the weight of what he lost. I picked up the pot gently and stood. He stood with me. Sienna. Don't, I said softly. He looked like he wanted to say more. But he didn't. And maybe that was the first right thing he'd done in a long time. I walked past him. Past the place where I had once spent late nights rewriting his proposals, redesigning planter layouts, itching my sense of worth into every hanging fern. The elevator doors opened before he could follow. I stepped in. The city outside was louder than usual. But inside me everything was still. I carried the pot with both arms. It wasn't heavy. Not anymore. At home I gently transferred the surviving Fittonia into a new terracotta pot. I trimmed the roots, watered the soil, and whispered, You made it out too. Then I tucked the old one in a box, sealed it shut, and slid it under my bed. Not as a keepsake. As a tombstone. The sky cracked open the moment I stepped out of the Hale Design building. The kind of storm that arrives without grace or warning. One loud, broken-hearted breath of wind followed by sheets of rain so sharp they felt like glass. I didn't have an umbrella. Didn't pull my coat tighter. Didn't turn back. I just kept walking. The flower pot sat carefully nestled inside a paper bag, the damp corners slowly giving in as the water pooled at my feet. I held it against my chest like something sacred, something stolen back, something rescued. I wasn't crying. Not exactly. But something about the way the rain hit my face made it easier to pretend I wasn't thinking about the look on Grayson's face when he saw the carving on the bottom of the pot. That flicker of realization. That pause. That first, small crack in his carefully curated composure. Too late. Always too late. The sidewalks were slick and half-flooded. Traffic lights blinked red through the haze, and puddles swallowed the corners like the city itself was trying to forget. I wasn't rushing. Didn't check my phone. Didn't bother navigating around the pools of muddy water. I just walked. Half present. Half numb. Fully exhausted. At the intersection of 8th and Delaney, I paused beneath the glow of a flickering streetlight. The crosswalk signal was still red. I looked left. Then right. No cars in sight, just a blur of movement and honking 2 blocks away. I stepped forward. And that's when it happened. A flash of wheels. A shout. The screech of rubber. Then pain. A short, sharp jolt through my side as something heavy collided with me, just hard enough to knock the air out of my lungs. I hit the ground, hands slamming against wet concrete, the bag sliding out of my arms. The flower pot shattered beside me with a sound that pierced through everything. The thunder, the rain, the voices. I lay there for a second, blinking up at the sky. Someone was yelling. "Are you okay? God, I didn't see you, I didn't. Are you hurt?" The rider, maybe early 20s, raincoat plastered to his frame, jumped off his scooter, eyes wide with panic. I blinked slowly. "I'm fine," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "You're bleeding," he said. I looked down. My wrist was scraped. My ribs ached. My palm was already swelling. And the pot was in pieces. An ambulance came. Someone must have called it, maybe the scooter guy, maybe a bystander. I didn't argue. Didn't protest. Didn't say a word as they lifted me into the back, strapped my wrist, and asked me to blink, breathe, speak. I did all 3. Silently. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and rain-soaked coats. The lights were too bright. The air too cold. They wheeled me into a curtained bay and wrapped a blood pressure cuff around my arm. A nurse, mid-40s, brown eyes kind behind thick glasses, held a clipboard in one hand and a pen in the other. She squinted at the paperwork. "Sienna Blake?" I nodded. "No listed emergency contact." I stared at the ceiling. "Anyone you'd like us to call?" "No," I said. She hesitated. "Not even." I turned my face toward the wall and said nothing. After a beat, she gave a small nod. "Got it." They cleaned my wrist, gave me painkillers, and scanned my ribs. "Hairline fracture. Mild sprain. A few days of rest," they said. "No heavy lifting." I nodded through it all. Said thank you. To go home. They gave me a plastic bag with my torn jeans, my blood-specked sweater, and a hospital-issue pamphlet on recovering with soft tissue injury. I waited near the glass exit doors for a cab, shoulders hunched, coat damp against the plastic chair. A nurse handed me a second bag. "They found this in your belongings." Inside was a single shard of ceramic, reddish-brown, with a faint curve of the letter S carved into the edge. The only piece of the flower pot that had survived. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The city shimmered under streetlights and the soft glow of oil-slick puddles. I stepped out of the sliding doors and into the silence. No one waited for me. And that, somehow, was the easiest part to accept. I slept for 12 hours that night. No dreams. No calls. No apologies. Just sleep. The next morning, I took the ceramic shard and planted it halfway into the soil of my balcony's lavender pot. A reminder. Not of the accident. Not of the pain. But of the woman who walked through all of it alone, and bloomed anyway. When Isla found out, she stormed into my apartment 2 days later with soup and a fury. "Why didn't you call me?" "Because it was over before it began." She cupped my wrist in her hands, examined the wrap, and then looked at me. Really looked. "You're not as okay as you pretend to be." "No," I agreed. "But I'm healing like I always have," quietly. Later, when I was alone, I opened the hospital bag again. Inside was a single folded note, one I didn't remember placing in my coat pocket. "Bread. You've carried him long enough. Now carry yourself." My handwriting. I didn't even remember writing it. But I read it 3 times before I tucked it into the frame of my mirror. The flower pot was gone. The initials shattered. But I'd survived worse. And now I had one less weight to carry. I didn't plan to stay in Ashbourne. At first, it was just a dot on a map. A sleepy coastal town with wind-battered signs, a cracked boardwalk, and a listing for a dilapidated guest house that read, "Ocean view. Needs repair. Will sell fast." They were lying about the last part. No one wanted it. Except me. 2 years have passed since I left the city. Since I packed what was left of my life into a single suitcase and boarded a train without telling anyone where I was going. Since I stopped waiting for apologies from people who didn't know how to say them. The guest house was a mess when I found it. Peeling paint. Rotten floorboards. A garden choked with weeds and rusted tools. But the bones were good. Strong. Like mine. I renamed it the Wild Haven. And little by little I made it bloom. There are 6 rooms now, each one with handmade linen, potted herbs on the windowsills and handwritten welcome notes. No 2 rooms are the same. I don't use scented candles or staged lighting. Just sunlight. Lemon water. Silence. Guests write that it feels like breathing for the first time in months. That's how I know I'm doing it right. The garden wall started as therapy. I built it over one long winter, stacking stones by hand, threading moss through the cracks, planting creeping jasmine to climb across its frame. I called it the wall that listens. People started pinning folded letters to it. Grief. Hope. Confessions. One woman wrote, "He never said sorry, so I stopped waiting." Another wrote, "This is where I remembered I deserve softness." A travel blogger came through and snapped a photo at dusk. The vines lit with fairy lights, petals curling in gold shadow. She posted it with the caption, "The quietest place I've ever healed." The photo went viral. And suddenly the Wild Haven was booked for 6 months straight. A local magazine called. Then a bigger one. They wanted interviews. Articles. Exposure. I agreed to one. Just one. No profile photos. Just the garden. Let the blooms do the talking. Every morning I wake up before the guests. I walk barefoot through the herb beds checking for new shoots. I hum to the basil, whisper to the lavender. There's peace in the dirt. In the simplicity of things that ask for nothing but care. It's the opposite of what I used to know. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. A few of the regulars ask about the city sometimes. If I miss it. If I miss anyone. I smile politely and change the subject. They never press. Think they know. The wildest part? I'm not lonely. Not even a little. One Tuesday afternoon I was transferring aloe pups into ceramic pots when Isla's name popped up on my phone. We hadn't spoken in weeks, but I always smiled when she called. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered. "Still talking to your plants like they're your roommates?" she asked. "They're better listeners than you." She laughed. "I'll take that." Then her tone shifted. "You haven't been online today, have you?" "No." She hesitated. "Well, the wedding invites dropped." It took me a beat. "What wedding?" She was quiet. Then, "Grayson and Camille. It's everywhere. Architectural Digest. Elle Decor. Even Vogue caught wind. Big Italian vineyard thing." I leaned against the doorframe, eyes closed. Destination, huh? Luxury. Custom calligraphy. One of those, we never really fell out of love, narratives. Of course. Isla paused again. "Do you want me to block the tags for you?" "No," I said softly. "I want to see it." That night I opened my laptop. Typed their names. And there was. The press release. A photo of them standing in a vineyard at sunset. Grayson in a tailored white suit. Camille in an off-shoulder gown, laughing like the universe had been made to orbit her. Caption. Where it began. Where it belonged. Forever, finally. My stomach didn't twist. My eyes didn't sting. I just closed the tab. I'd seen enough. I opened my notebook instead. And on the next page I wrote. She didn't win. I just walked away from the prize I no longer wanted. The next morning a guest named Nora brought me a basket of oranges. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said. "But I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me I'm allowed to start over. Even now. Even at 57. I smiled. It's never too late to plant something that blooms in a different season. That afternoon I stood before the garden wall, pruning the mint near the edge. A teenage girl had pinned a note that read, "He left. And the world didn't end. Only the part that kept me small." I left it there. Let the wind read it aloud. I no longer needed revenge. Or justice. Or validation. Just growth. Just stillness. Just the soft knowledge that I had become everything I once begged someone else to see. Let Grayson and Camille have their wedding. Their press coverage. They're curated forever. I had something better. A life. The last piece of the flower pot I once made for him still lives in my greenhouse. Half buried in the soil of a terracotta trough, surrounded by thriving rosemary. I keep it there not for memory, but for contrast. To remind myself what was broken. And what came after. I once gave someone everything I had in the hope they'd return it whole. But now, I give to the ground. And it always gives back. The message came on a Thursday. I was deadheading marigolds along the south wall when Isla called. I think he saw it. I didn't need to ask who he was. What makes you think that? I said even though I already knew. Because Hale Design's official account just reposted that travel blogger's video of your garden wall. With the caption, "Where quiet things speak loudest." I paused, shears midair. She continued, and 5 minutes later, he viewed my story. The one where you were laughing on the porch last night. I exhaled slowly. That's a stretch, Isla. Maybe, she said. But he saw you. And you looked happy. Which is the part he probably didn't know how to handle. Later that night, as the last guests wandered to their rooms and the vines cast long shadows across the deck, my phone lit up. Instagram DM, Grayson Hale. 3:17 p.m. I saw your garden. It's beautiful. Are you happy? I stared at it for a full 5 minutes. Then I turned my phone over face down and went back to cleaning up the herb trimmings. The next morning I left the message unopened. Unread technically. But seen? Absolutely. I didn't reply. Didn't type. Didn't delete. I didn't even breathe differently. Because his words didn't sting, they echoed. The way some things do when they show up too late. 2 days passed. The guest house remained full. The garden wall attracted more notes. Some joyful, some grieving. One in particular caught my eye. Read. He remembered me only after the world began clapping for me. I smiled as I pinned it between 2 stems of creeping mint. Then he came. Not a call. Not a second message. Just his presence. Unannounced. I was watering the rosemary near the entry gate when I heard footsteps on gravel. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just familiar. I turned. And there he was. Grayson Hale. Standing in front of my gate with his hands in his pockets like he hadn't been silent for 2 years. He looked older. Not in the way time ages us but in the way regret settles into the skin. He wore a black sweater, sleeves pushed to his elbows, and a pair of jeans that didn't quite match the man who once only wore pressed trousers and Italian shoes. His hair was longer. His eyes unsure. Hi, he said. I didn't reply. He cleared his throat. I know I should have called. You didn't need to. I didn't think you'd reply. You were right. He stepped closer but not across the garden threshold. He respected that invisible line between us, the one he used to trample over without knowing. I saw the video, he said. The garden wall. The guest house. All of it. I nodded. He looked around. It's breathtaking. It's mine, I said simply. That made him flinch. Not visibly. But enough. He took a slow breath. I sent a message. I know. You didn't respond. I didn't want to. He looked down then back up at me. You look different. I tilted my head, lips steady. That's because you never looked. Silence stretched between us as thick as the rosemary around my feet. I came to say, he began but I cut in. You came to say something you should have said years ago. And it's fine. You can say it. Just don't expect it to change anything. He swallowed. I never knew how to be what you needed. No, I agreed. You only ever asked if I could be what you needed. His eyes softened but I didn't. I thought about you, he said. A lot. Thinking of me in my absence doesn't undo what you did in my presence. He didn't argue. Didn't offer excuses. But still he stood there. I don't want to take anything from you, he said quietly. Not anymore. Good, I replied. Because there's nothing left here with your name on it. He looked down at his shoes. Then up. One last time. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For thinking you'd wait. The wind moved through the lemon trees behind me. Soft. Unbothered. I didn't wait, I told him. I arrived. He nodded slowly, the way people do when they finally understand a lesson too late to use it. I hope it all grows beyond even this, he said, glancing toward the wall. It already has. And that was it. He turned. Walked back down the gravel path. Didn't look over his shoulder. Didn't ask to stay. And for the first time since he stepped into my life, he left without taking anything from it. That evening, I sat by the garden wall with a cup of tea and a stack of unpinned notes. One of them said, "Some people say sorry because they want forgiveness. Some say it because they finally mean it. And some say it because they think it gives them a way back in." I didn't know which Grayson was. And I didn't need to. I opened his message one final time. Left it on seen. Then deleted it. Not out of anger. But because I didn't need a record of someone finally noticing me after I'd already left the room. I had a life now. One I didn't need to explain or defend. One that didn't require permission to matter. You'd be amazed how many ways love can go unnoticed. Especially the kind that doesn't shout. The kind that folds laundry before the other person gets home. The kind that memorizes coffee orders. The kind that never makes a scene even when it hurts. That's how I loved Grayson. Quietly. Thoroughly. Without applause. I once drove 2 hours to find him a blooming cactus for a desert installation after he said, offhandedly, "My mother used to love these." He never asked. He never said thank you either. Just walked past it every day in the studio without noticing that I'd placed it there the morning after he mentioned it. I watered it for a year before someone knocked it over. He never realized it was gone. I used to time my grocery runs to match his lunch breaks, so I could drop by his office with ginger tea and granola bars. He never asked why I always showed up just when he was rubbing his temples. He thought I had good timing. I didn't. I just paid attention. There was a week he lost a pitch. His shoulders were tense for days. He barely spoke. So I downloaded a white noise app, bought him noise-canceling earbuds and left them in his drawer with a note. "You don't have to carry the pressure in your spine." He never mentioned it. But I saw him using the earbuds during late-night design sprints after that. I loved him like rain, consistent, uninvited, and entirely too forgiving. And he absorbed it like stone. Until I evaporated. Camille noticed before he did. Of course she did. She found him sitting at the edge of their shared bed one morning, phone in hand, scrolling through a photo of a flower wall bathed in morning light. Not a model's face. Not a runway. A wall. And a woman tending to it. "Why do you keep looking at her?" Camille asked softly. He didn't answer right away. "It's a beautiful photo," he said finally. "Of course it is. She built it." Still he said nothing. Camille's voice shifted from curiosity to warning. "You've been distant." "I'm tired." "No," she said. "You're haunted." He looked at her. And for the first time in months he didn't pretend. "She built something I didn't think she could," he admitted. Camille tilted her head. "She always could, Grayson. You just never looked." That night she poured herself a glass of red wine and stood by the kitchen window, arms folded. "You didn't fight for her," she said. Grayson paused mid-sip. "What?" "You never fought," Camille repeated. "You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You didn't explain. You just waited." "I respected her choice," he said quietly. "No," she snapped. "You banked on her loyalty being stronger than your silence." He didn't defend himself. Didn't raise his voice. Because for the first time in years he realized. He was right. He sat on the couch that night long after Camille had gone to bed. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old journal. Not his. Sienna's. She used to keep it in her studio. A green linen-covered notebook with flower-pressed pages and ink-smudged corners. He never read it. Till now. Inside were lists. Sketches. Notes. "Don't forget to water the sage, he likes the smell in the morning." His headaches come around the third pitch review. Basil oil might help. Remember, he forgets birthdays. So order his assistant's gift a week early. It wasn't a design journal. It was a love letter in installments. Unseen. He flipped to a pressed page of forget-me-nots. There was a note scribbled in the margin. "I don't need grand gestures. I just want to be seen in the daylight." He closed the book. Pressed it to his chest. And for the first time in his meticulously designed life, he felt it. The weight of being left behind. Meanwhile in Ashbourne I was sipping honey tea on my back porch barefoot, a book resting on my knees. Aidan was hanging string lights across the garden trellis, humming softly to himself. He caught me watching him and smiled. "Want to help me untangle this mess?" He held up a coil of lights. I laughed. I've had enough of untangling in my life. Fair, he grinned. Then you sit. I'll be the idiot who climbs ladders. He kissed my forehead as he passed. Not in a hurry. Not to be seen. Just because he could. Later, as we tucked into bed beneath cotton sheets and the scent of lemon balm, he whispered, "You think he regrets it?" Who? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. "I think he's only just realizing what I gave him," I said softly. And how quietly I did it. Aiden traced a circle on the back of my hand. "I hope he does." I turned to face him. "Why?" "Because it means he's finally seeing you, even if it's from too far away." We fell asleep to the sound of the sea brushing the cliffs beyond the garden. And I dreamt not of Grayson, but of a greenhouse bathed in warm light. Full of things that needed tending. And no one who needed to be convinced to care. The first cracks didn't come with thunder. They came with silence. A small project delay. A missed deadline. A press piece pulled last minute. Then came the storm. Camille had promised Hale Design's investors a luxury eco-retreat on a Manhattan rooftop. Vertical gardens, solar tiling, water recycling. Words she used freely. Buzzwords mostly. Except she didn't understand them. And she refused to ask for help. The project was a disaster. The solar system wasn't compatible with the rooftop's structural limits. The irrigation plan failed. Water leaked into the penthouse below during a soft opening brunch. And that penthouse? It belonged to an attorney. A very loud, very well-connected attorney. Within 48 hours, lawsuits began to roll in. Breaches of safety code. Violation of lease agreements. Environmental fraud. The press turned faster than a storm tide. From Camille Vale brings Parisian luxury to New York skylines. To socialite architect accused of greenwashing and code breach. Grayson tried to contain it. He pulled out NDAs, launched a PR cleanup and suspended Camille from public-facing roles. But the investors didn't care. They wanted solutions. They wanted credibility. They wanted someone with a record. They wanted me. That's when the call came. I was in the greenhouse, organizing seed packets with Nora when my phone buzzed. Incoming call, Grayson Hale. I stared at the screen, unmoving. Nora raised a brow. A client. Not exactly. Take it, she said. You'll regret it if you don't. I stepped out into the herb garden before I answered. My voice was flat. What do you want? There was a pause. Then his voice, low, brittle. I need your help. I didn't say anything. He continued, it's the rooftop project. The one Camille managed. It's not recoverable. But the board trusts your original blueprint. They asked for you by name. How convenient, I said. Sienna. No, I interrupted. You don't get to call me now and pretend like this is about talent. It is, he insisted. You're the only one who ever understood how to blend living systems with structural integrity. I laughed softly. Did Camille write that line for you? I'm serious. So am I. There was silence. Then quietly, please. I'll pay you whatever you want. Just come back. Help me fix this. That was when it hit me. Not his desperation. Not the compliment. But the complete absence of self-awareness. He still didn't get it. No, I said clearly. I thought you wanted this kind of recognition, he said. I smiled coldly. I did. But not like this. Not when it comes with the stench of someone else's collapse. I'm offering you a chance to what? I cut in. To patch your ego? To be your plan B after plan A imploded? I'm not a bandage, Grayson. I'm not the woman you call when your first pick ruins your name. I let that sit between us for a moment. Then I added, I gave you everything I had once. You didn't lose me because I stopped giving. You lost me because you never offered anything in return. He was quiet. And then for the first time his voice cracked. I'm sorry. I didn't soften. I know. I ended the call. Blocked the number. And walked back into the greenhouse, where the mint was thriving and the soil was warm beneath my fingers. Later that evening Isla texted me. Girl, the way you hung up on that man. I need it on vinyl. For emotional support. I sent back a single sunflower emoji and went to bed smiling. Grayson didn't call again. But the storm didn't stop. Within weeks, 2 major investors pulled out of Hale Design. A third moved funding to a rival firm. Camille tried to spin it as industry politics. Grayson didn't speak at the next press conference. He stood beside her, stiff and silent, like a man finally realizing the price of choosing noise over substance. Meanwhile, back in Ashbourne, I planted a new variety of sunflowers beside the garden wall. They bloomed taller than the others. I named them second chances. Not for giving. For growing without needing one. The lavender was in full bloom the day he came back. No storm. No bruised ego. No urgent request tucked in a rehearsed apology. Just him. Standing quietly at the edge of the garden path, where my rosemary hedge met the gravel trail, a bouquet of wildflowers in one hand and something unreadable in his eyes. I was pruning sage near the greenhouse door. I didn't flinch when I saw him. Didn't gasp. Didn't smile. Just met his gaze evenly and waited. He walked forward slowly, careful not to step on the thyme spilling over the stone path. When he reached me, he offered the flowers. I didn't pick these to win anything, he said. I just thought they were beautiful. Like this place. I took them. Not out of sentiment. Just out of civility. He looked older. Tired in a quieter way. The kind of exhaustion that comes from facing parts of yourself you can't edit or outwork. Isla told me you're starting a botanical foundation, he said after a long pause. I nodded. Scholarships for underrepresented students. Funding for small-town green projects. Seed libraries. He smiled faintly. It sounds important. It is. He exhaled. I'd like to contribute. I didn't answer right away. He continued, a little more cautious this time. Not for credit. Not to fix anything. Just because I believe in what you're building. I looked down at the bouquet. A poppy. Some yarrow. A stem of blue delphinium, slightly wilted. Then back up at him. You know, I said, there was a time I would have burst into tears hearing that. Not because of the money, but because I spent years just wanting you to believe in me. I know, he said quietly. I don't need it now. He didn't push. Didn't beg. Didn't ask what I needed in return. Maybe he'd finally learned something about real giving. So I had to say it. For both of us. Some things aren't yours to pour into anymore. He nodded. I figured that might be the answer, he said almost to himself. But I wanted to try. Not for redemption. Just for truth. You found it, I replied. I'll leave it here. We sat on the porch steps for a few minutes, not speaking. The sky was soft and gold and fading gently into dusk. He looked out over the garden wall, where a new note had just been pinned by a guest that morning. You don't have to hate them to let go. You just have to love yourself more. I didn't point it out, but I saw his eyes pause on the words. You did this, he said after a while. Built all of this. Because you forgot me, I answered not cruelly, just honestly. And I finally remembered myself. He exhaled like someone surrendering something heavy, then stood. Will I ever be welcome here again? He asked. I met his gaze one last time. No. But you'll be remembered here. He didn't ask how. And I didn't tell him about the small terracotta shards still buried beneath the rosemary. He left the same way he came. Quietly. Respectfully. Finally. That night, I pressed the flowers he brought into one of my journals. Not out of sentiment, but to remind myself what it looks like when someone means it, and still doesn't get to stay. The next morning, I dug a new bed near the west fence line. Sunflowers. The tall kind. The kind that tilt unapologetically toward light and never bend backward. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't matter. But because it did, and I'd already grieved the version of him that couldn't see me when it counted. This version. He didn't arrive to be chosen. He arrived to close a door. And for once I let him. The morning of the launch, the garden smelled like lavender and lemon balm and purpose. The sky was soft and gold-tinged, like the whole town of Ashbourne had exhaled just to make room for this day. The ribbon for the inaugural ceremony had been tied between two oak posts Isla painted herself. The letters on the sign read, The Wild Haven Botanical Foundation, Growing Futures. And below it in smaller print, Founded by Sienna Blake. For those who were once forgotten. The chairs filled slowly. Locals. Former guests. Young students from the nearby high school who had never stepped into a greenhouse before. There was a girl in the front row with dirt on her shoes and a curious glint in her eyes. She reminded me of me. Aiden stood near the hydrangeas, sleeves rolled, checking on the mics and helping arrange the herb-tied thank you baskets. He caught my eye, smiled and didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He had always known that silence could be a kind of devotion too, if it came with presence. Isla was in charge of the ceremony, which meant, despite her protests, she had to give a speech. She took the stage with her hair in a messy bun, holding a glass of sweet tea instead of cue cards. "Hi everyone," she said a little too loud into the mic. "I'm Isla Reyes. I'm Sienna's friend, emotional bodyguard and occasional pot-breaking assistant." The crowd laughed softly. She looked at me. I could stand up here and tell you how incredible this woman is. How she turned a run-down guest house into a sanctuary. How she grows food, flowers, and second chances. But if you're here, you already know that. A hush settled over the garden. She didn't just build this place for herself. She built it for all of us. For the people who've been overlooked, underestimated, or quietly erased. For those of us who were told to shrink, and decided to root instead. She paused. I once told her she deserved more than what she was settling for. I get to say this with a full heart, she found it. There were no applause signs. No camera crews. Just a standing ovation that didn't feel performative. Just grateful. Just real. I stepped forward, my palms open and steady. I built this place for anyone who ever whispered, "I don't belong here," and still chose to grow anyway. I looked at the rows of unfamiliar yet kind faces. Gardens don't rush. They don't beg. They just ask for light. And now I get to give that light to others. The students clapped first. Then the older couples. Then everyone else. And when I stepped back, Aiden was already there, wrapping an arm around my waist, grounding me like he always did. Not holding me up. Just holding me. The rest of the day was a gentle blur. Workshops. Seed packet giveaways. A tour of the garden wall. Photos of the kids painting their first clay pots. Lemon tarts on the porch. Sunshine across every wooden table. Grayson didn't show. Camille didn't send flowers. And that was perfect. Because they weren't supposed to be part of this chapter. At dusk, Aiden and I stood at the back fence line, where the newest bed of sunflowers had just started to bloom. The same girl from earlier ran up to me, holding a tiny notebook filled with plant sketches. "I want to start my own garden club at school," she said breathlessly. "Can I write to you if I have questions?" I knelt to meet her eyes. "You can write to me anytime. This garden grows as far as you want to take it." She hugged me without warning, then ran off into the fading light. I looked at Aiden. He smiled. I didn't need to say anything. But I did anyway. "Thank you for never asking me to shrink." He shrugged. "Watching you bloom has always been the best seat in the house." As the guests trickled out and lanterns began to glow warm across the trellises, I took one final walk along the garden wall. Someone had pinned a single slip of paper at eye level. Read. "Some doors close quietly. But when they do, the sunlight pours in." I didn't recognize the handwriting. Didn't need to. The garden had become its own kind of chorus now. When I didn't have to lead anymore. Just listen to. And so I stood in the doorway of the home I built, the one no man gave me, no job title claimed, no apology carved into. And I breathed in. The scent of sage. The hum of cicadas. The soft echo of laughter from the porch. The world didn't reward me with fireworks or retribution. It gave me this instead. Peace. Presence. And a life rooted not in someone else's orbit, but in my own light. The end.